Hi, and thank you for joining us once more on Boring History for Sleep. I'm already feeling quite sleepy myself. Hope you are too. If this is your first time drifting with us, a special welcome. Consider subscribing and perhaps leaving a like if you find this kind of historical immersion helps you unwind. As we dim the lights on the present, breathe deeply, release any tension clinging to your shoulders, and let your mind gently float back with us. Back to a time of stone walls, flickering torchlight, and the pervasive chill that seeps into your very bones. Tonight, we delve into a reality far removed from the grand tapestries and noble feasts often depicted. We're exploring the harsh, often brutal, and profoundly uncomfortable existence of someone quite specific. You. You are a dwarf servant within the imposing, drafty confines of a medieval castle. Forget the romantic notions. Survival here is a relentless, thankless struggle, especially for someone seen not quite as human, but as something else. Imagine waking not to sunlight, but to the damp, musty smell of straw bedding that's likely shared and seldom changed. The air hangs thick with the lingering odour of stale ale, unwashed bodies, and the ever-present scent of wood smoke that stings your nostrils and coats the back of your throat. Before your eyes even fully adjust to the gloom, the sounds begin. The distant clang of the blacksmith's hammer already at work, the shuffling feet of other servants stirring in the darkness, the scuttling of unseen things in the walls, and perhaps the gruff shouts of an overseer rousing the household. Your world is one of low ceilings and towering furniture, a constant physical reminder of your stature in a world not built for you. The cold stone floor bites at your bare feet as you rise. Dressing isn't about comfort, but function, or worse, spectacle. Perhaps today you'll be squeezed into a ridiculously colourful, ill-fitting tunic designed not for warmth, but to amuse the lord and lady, a splash of jester-like colour in their otherwise drab world, a living caricature. The first task of the day might be anything from scrubbing floors with freezing water and harsh lye soap that leaves your small hands raw, to the perilous journey of carrying messages through the chaotic, crowded castle bailey, dodging horses, carts, and indifferent, larger legs. Or perhaps you'll be summoned to the great hall even before breakfast, not to eat, but to entertain. To be the butt of a crude joke, to perform a clumsy dance, or simply to stand there, an object of curiosity, while the nobility breaks their fast. There's no gentle easing into the day here. Every moment is underscored by vulnerability. A careless kick from a passing guard, a shove from a larger servant competing for favour, the whims of a bored noble looking for cruel amusement. These are constant threats. You are property, a novelty, your well-being an afterthought, if it's a thought at all. The grandeur of the castle, the soaring stone walls and intricate carvings, they aren't symbols of security for you. They are the boundaries of your gilded, or perhaps just rusty, cage. Let the sounds of this imagined morning settle around you, the distant noise, the close-up discomfort, and prepare yourself. The day has only just begun, and it promises little comfort. The day presses on, indifferent to your small stature or the chill that clings to you despite the layers you might wear, or perhaps because of the thin, garish costume forced upon you. Let's say your first destination isn't the relative quiet of the message run, nor the immediate humiliation of the great hall, but the chaotic heart of the castle's sustenance, the kitchens. Just reaching them is an ordeal. You navigate corridors designed for giants, it seems. Stone flags stretch out before you, vast and uneven. Your steps echo slightly, lost beneath the louder clatter of guards' boots, the rustle of finer fabrics worn by higher-ranking servants, and the distant muffled roar of the main hearth. You keep close to the walls, a habit born of self-preservation. It's easier to flatten yourself against the cold stone when a group of boisterous squires comes barreling through, their minds on training or mischief, utterly oblivious to the small obstacle you represent. A misplaced foot, a careless shove. It could mean a nasty fall, a twisted ankle, or worse, drawing unwanted attention. The air changes as you approach. The general dampness gives way to waves of heat, thick with the smell of roasting meat, boiling stews, baking bread, but also underscored by less pleasant notes. The acrid tang of burnt drippings, the sourness of spilled milk, the underlying reek of refuse waiting to be hauled away. The noise intensifies too, a cacophony of chopping blades on wooden blocks, the clang of heavy iron pots, sizzling fat, shouted orders, and the constant underlying hiss and crackle of multiple fires. You push through the heavy wooden door, itself a challenge, requiring your full weight, and step into the inferno. The heat hits you like a physical blow, radiating from massive open hearths where whole animals might be turning on spits, tended by sweating, soot-stained cooks. The floor is treacherous, slick with grease, spilled water, and discarded vegetable scraps. Large, aggressive dogs, kept for hunting, but allowed to roam here for scraps, snarl and snap near the butchering blocks, their eyes gleaming in the firelight. They barely notice you, unless you stumble too close to their prize. Your task here might be simple, yet perilous. Fetching herbs from a low shelf, perhaps, requiring you to navigate past the chopping block where a kitchen boy carelessly swings a cleaver. Or maybe scrubbing a cauldron, the metal still radiating heat, the greasy water stinging the cuts on your hands. You might be ordered to turn a smaller spit, the repetitive motion making your arms ache, the heat blistering your face, all while trying to avoid the spitting fat and the casual kicks of the head cook if you slow down. Here, you are less than a servant. You are almost part of the background clutter, easily overlooked, easily tripped over. Yet you are also intensely visible if someone chooses to notice you, perhaps for a quick, cruel jest, like tossing a scalding spoonful of soup near your feet to see the little one jump, or demanding you taste something impossibly hot or foul. The kitchen staff, often overworked and ill-tempered themselves, might vent their frustrations on the easiest target available. You learn to move quickly, silently, anticipating the flow of traffic, the swing of a pot, the mood of the cook. Survival is about invisibility, punctuated by moments of forced, unpleasant presence. The smell of food is everywhere, but little of it is meant for you. Hunger gnaws, a constant companion to the heat, the noise, and the fear. The morning is still young, but already it feels like an eternity has passed in this sweltering, dangerous heart of the castle. Leaving the oppressive heat and greasy chaos of the kitchens behind offers only a temporary and incomplete respite. The main corridors might be cooler, but the air still carries the lingering scent of smoke and unwashed humanity. Your next task, perhaps, involves the Great Hall, the imposing centerpiece of the castle's social life. Even empty, it feels vast and intimidating. Your footsteps, barely audible before, now echo unnervingly on the stone floor, beneath the high vaulted ceiling, lost in the immense space. Sunlight, if the day is fair, might stream through tall, narrow windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air, but doing little to warm the cavernous room. More likely, the light is dim, provided by flickering torches in wall sconces that cast long, dancing shadows, making familiar shapes seem monstrous. The air here smells different, colder, stonier, with the faint, musty aroma of old tapestries that hang on the walls, depicting heroic battles or pastoral scenes utterly alien to your daily reality. You might be tasked with polishing the long trestle tables where the nobility will soon feast. The wood is dark, heavy, and scarred from years of use. Spilled wine, knife marks, the grime of countless meals. You use a rough cloth and some beeswax mixture, your small hands struggling to cover the vast surfaces. Reaching the center requires climbing onto the benches, a precarious act that could easily result in a fall onto the hard floor, an accident that would likely earn you curses rather than sympathy. Or perhaps your role is more decorative, as other servants bustle about, laying out pewter plates, goblets, and arranging rushes on the floor, which will soon soak up spilled food, drink, and other less pleasant things. You might be positioned near the high table, like a piece of living furniture. Maybe you're given a lute far too large for you to pretend to play, or simply told to stand still, a silent, diminutive figure meant to add to the ambiance, a testament to the Lord's wealth and collection of curiosities. This is where the indifference you felt in the kitchens sharpens into something more pointed. Higher-ranking servants, the steward, the butler, perhaps even visiting squires, might pass by, their eyes flicking over you with dismissal or faint amusement. A jest might be made at your expense, a quick, humiliating remark about your size or your brightly coloured tunic, eliciting chuckles from others nearby. You learn to keep your eyes downcast, your expression neutral, betraying no reaction. Showing anger or resentment is dangerous. Showing fear can be amusing to them. The preparations themselves are a whirlwind of activity around you. The clatter of dishes, the shouts of instruction, the heavy tread of feet. You are an island of enforced stillness in a sea of motion, or perhaps a tiny, insignificant boat tossed about by its currents. If a feast is imminent, the tension mounts. Tempers fray, a dropped platter, a misplaced goblet. These small mistakes can bring swift punishment, and you know that any disruption, even one not of your making, could easily be blamed on the most convenient scapegoat. You. The grandeur of the hall, meant to impress visitors and project power, feels hollow and threatening from your perspective. The carved beasts on the ceiling beams seem to leer down. The faded heroes on the tapestries offer no protection. It's a stage, and you are unwillingly part of the performance, a role defined entirely by the amusement or indifference of others. As the final touches are put in place, and the first important guests begin to arrive, a new kind of dread settles in. The relative anonymity of chores is ending. Soon the hall will fill with noise, food, and people, lords, ladies, knights, and your visibility, your vulnerability, will increase tenfold. The performance is about to begin. The guests have arrived. The great hall, moments ago a space of tense preparation, now explodes with noise and activity. From your position near the high table, perhaps standing on a small stool to be better seen, or maybe just placed strategically low where boots and hems constantly brush past, the scene is overwhelming. The roar of conversation, punctuated by loud laughter and the clatter of cutlery on pewter, washes over you. The air grows thick with the mingled scents of roasted meats, spiced wine, perfumes worn by the ladies, sweat from the men, and the underlying mustiness of the hall itself. Torchlight glints off polished goblets, elaborate jewellery, and the occasional drawn dagger worn at a belt. Faces loom large above you, flushed with drink and excitement, mostly ignoring you. But sometimes eyes drift down, lingering with curiosity, amusement, or even disdain. This is the performance. Your ridiculous tunic, perhaps with bells sewn onto the hem that jingle with every nervous shift of your weight, marks you as part of the spectacle. The lord or lady might gesture towards you, making a comment to a guest. Our little marvel, perhaps, or some cruder jest about your size. Laughter follows, directed at you, not with you. You feel 100 eyes on you, dissecting your appearance, your posture, your very existence. You keep your gaze fixed on the floor, or perhaps on the intricate patterns of the tapestry behind the high table, anywhere but on the faces watching you. Maybe now comes the demand for entertainment. The steward signals, or the Lord calls out your name, a name perhaps given to you, not the one you were born with. Dance for us, little one, or tell us a jest. Your heart pounds against your ribs. You might be forced into a clumsy jig, your movements hampered by ill-fitting clothes and self-consciousness, designed to look comical rather than skillful. Or perhaps you recite a memorized rhyme, your voice barely audible above the din, hoping desperately not to stumble over the words, knowing that any mistake could earn you a cuff or worse, prolonged mockery. There's a constant, low-level thrum of fear. A careless foot could trip you. A drunken guest might decide to playfully toss you, a terrifying prospect. Hot wine could splash from a carelessly wielded goblet. Scraps of food might be thrown towards you, as if feeding a dog, accompanied by laughter. You are acutely aware of the power imbalance, the fragility of your position. You are entirely dependent on the whims of people who see you as less than human, a plaything to be enjoyed and discarded. The smells of the feast, rich gravy, sweet pastries, are a form of torture when hunger gnaws at your own stomach. You might be offered a tidbit, but often it's done performatively, a gesture of generosity for the audience. The food itself perhaps too rich, or simply snatched away at the last second for comedic effect. You learn to expect nothing, to desire nothing openly. Hours crawl by. The noise level rises. The behavior of the guests becomes looser, less guarded. The risks increase. You stand, or perform, or simply endure a small, brightly colored island of misery in an ocean of forced merriment. Exhaustion presses down, not just physical, but emotional. The constant strain of vigilance, of suppressing your own feelings, of being perpetually on display. And the feast is just one part of the evening. There may be more demands, more humiliations to come before you are finally dismissed, allowed to crawl back to your damp straw, unseen and unheard once more, until the next performance is required. The feast eventually winds down, not with a gentle fading, but often collapsing into drunken stupor or boisterous departures. For you, however, the night is far from over. While the nobles stumble off to their chambers, aided by personal attendants, and higher-ranking servants tally inventories or lock away valuables, your work might just be beginning or shifting to a different, equally unpleasant phase. The great hall, now littered with the detritus of revelry, gnawed bones, spilled wine pooling on the floor and soaking into the rushes, overturned goblets, discarded crusts of bread, is a landscape of hazards. Your task might be to help clear the tables, a job made perilous by the remaining occupants. Drunken squires or knights, lingering over a final cup, might see you as a target for amusement. A deliberate trip, a playful kick, a demand to fetch more wine from a cellar you can barely navigate in the dark. These are real possibilities. You move carefully, trying to remain unseen, unheard. The air is thick with the stench of stale wine, sweat and vomit. Your small hands struggle with heavy pewter plates, greasy with leftover fat. You might be ordered to scrape scraps into buckets for the dogs or the pigs, the smell turning your already empty stomach. Reaching across the wide tables is difficult, forcing you to climb onto benches slick with spilled drink, risking a fall among the debris. Perhaps this is when the games begin. A bored noble, too drunk to sleep, might decide it's time for sport. You could be forced into a race against another servant, or even one of the castle dogs, the outcome predetermined, the purpose solely humiliation. Or maybe a cruel form of hide and seek, where you are hunted through the darkened hall, the seekers armed with tankards or boots, their laughter echoing off the stone walls. The fear is palpable, a cold knot in your chest. There's no refusing, no escape. Disobedience means punishment, swift and painful. Even the simple act of returning to your sleeping quarters is fraught with danger. Dark corridors, uneven stairs, the possibility of encountering someone drunk and aggressive. You navigate these spaces with constant vigilance. Your bed, likely a pile of straw in a shared drafty corner, perhaps near the stables or kennels, offers little comfort. The straw might be damp, infested with fleas or lice. The snores and smells of other sleeping servants fill the small space. There's no privacy, no real rest. Your body aches, from standing for hours, from performing demanded tasks, perhaps from a blow or fall endured earlier. Chronic pain might be a constant companion, stemming from your stature, poor nutrition, or untreated injuries. There are no physicians tending to your ailments. A broken bone might heal crookedly. A festering wound could lead to sickness and death. You are replaceable. Your suffering is insignificant to those in power. Lying there in the dark, listening to the sounds of the sleeping castle, the distant howl of a wolf, the creak of timbers, the scuttling of rats, sleep might be elusive. Hunger might keep you awake, or the lingering fear, or the sheer physical discomfort. You exist in the margins, a life lived in the shadows of grandeur, marked by hardship, humiliation, and the constant, grinding reality of your own perceived worthlessness in this world. The silence of the night offers no peace, only a temporary pause before the demands of the next day begin anew. Sleep, when it finally comes, is shallow and fleeting, punctuated by the rustling of straw, the snores of others, and the persistent gnawing of hunger or cold. Before the first hint of grey dawn lightens the narrow slits that serve as windows in the lower quarters, you are roused, not gently, but by a rough shake or a kicked foot. The brief oblivion is over. The reality of your existence rushes back in. The air is stale and cold. Your limbs are stiff. Your back aches from the lumpy straw. There's no lingering, no quiet moment to gather yourself. Duty calls, relentless and immediate. And duty begins with perhaps the most degrading ritual of your day, dressing. Not in simple, functional servant's garb, but in the costume prescribed for you. Imagine the fabric. Coarse wool, perhaps, dyed in jarringly bright colours that clash deliberately. Maybe it's yellow and purple or garish green stripes. It might be deliberately ill-fitting, too tight in some places, ridiculously baggy in others, designed to emphasize your small stature in a comical, dehumanizing way. Perhaps there are padded humps sewn in, or oversized buttons, or a pointed cap with bells that jingle mockingly with every movement. The texture is rough against your skin, itchy and uncomfortable. Putting it on feels like donning a cage, a visible marker of your role as the castle's living oddity. Other servants stir around you, pulling on their own drab, practical tunics and leggings. Their glances might hold a mixture of pity, contempt, or simple, weary indifference. They have their own hardships, their own struggles for survival within the castle hierarchy. But yours is different. You are set apart, not just by size, but by this enforced spectacle. There might be whispered jokes as you struggle with a difficult fastening, or a shove as someone pushes past, impatient. You are among them, but not truly one of them. Once dressed, you might be immediately summoned. Not for cleaning or fetching, but simply to be seen. Perhaps the lady of the castle enjoys observing you as she takes her morning gruel, finding your bright colours amusing in the dim morning light. You might have to stand silently by her chair, enduring her casual scrutiny or pointed remarks to her attendants about your appearance. Or perhaps you are paraded before an early visitor, presented like a newly acquired pet, your costume the subject of comment and laughter. This costume dictates much of your day. It's impractical for physical labour. The bright colours stain easily, the bells catch on things, the fit restricts movement. Yet, you might still be assigned tasks like sweeping dusty floors or carrying firewood. The absurdity of performing menial chores in such an outfit, adding another layer to the humiliation. Keeping it clean is your responsibility, a near impossible task in the grime of the castle, and failure brings punishment. Everywhere you go, the costume announces you. It draws eyes in the corridors, invites comments from guards, makes you an easy target for bored squires. It is a constant reminder that you are not valued for your work or your skills, but for the strangeness of your form, exaggerated and mocked by the very clothes you are forced to wear. The thin fabric offers little protection against the pervasive chill, and the bright colours offer no camouflage from unwanted attention. You are exposed, vulnerable, and utterly defined by the role others have forced upon you. Another day stretches ahead, coloured by this enforced absurdity. Beyond the main halls and kitchens lies another world within the castle walls. The stables, the kennels, the mews where hunting birds are kept. These areas, often relegated to the outer baileys or lower levels, present their own unique set of challenges and dangers for someone of your stature. Let's imagine you're sent to the stables, perhaps to fetch something for the master of horse, or simply assigned the menial task of sweeping the already filthy cobblestone floor. The smell here is overpowering, a thick, pungent mix of horse manure, damp hay, sweat, and leather. The air hums with flies in warmer months, and the ground is perpetually damp and uneven. Massive horses shift and stomp in their stalls, their hooves striking the stone with unnerving force. Their sheer size is intimidating. A careless kick or even an impatient nudge could easily injure you severely. You navigate this space with extreme caution. Stable hands, often rough and busy men, shout commands, lead horses in and out, and toss heavy saddles or buckets of feed with little regard for who might be underfoot. You are easily overlooked, a small figure amidst the large animals and bustling activity. The horses themselves, while perhaps not intentionally malicious, are unpredictable. A startled reaction, a sudden movement. You must always be aware of your surroundings, ready to flatten yourself against a wall or duck into an empty stall. The floor is a minefield of manure, discarded straw, and puddles of dubious liquid. Keeping your footing is a constant challenge, especially in the poor light filtering through dusty windows or provided by smoky lanterns. A fall here means landing in filth, earning disgust, and likely a cuff from the nearest stable hand for being clumsy. Perhaps your task involves the kennels, where the Lord's hunting hounds are kept. The noise is deafening, a constant chorus of barking, whining, and snarling. The smell is even stronger than the stables, sharp and animalistic. These are working dogs, often large and aggressive, trained to hunt and kill. While they might be loyal to their handlers, they likely see you as something strange, perhaps even prey. Entering the kennel area requires courage, facing down rows of barking muzzles and gleaming teeth, hoping the handlers keep them restrained or that their attention is elsewhere. A loose hound could be a serious threat. Or maybe you are sent to the mews, where hawks and falcons are housed. The atmosphere here is quieter, but no less tense. Hooded birds sit silently on their perches, radiating a predatory stillness. The air smells of bird droppings and raw meat used for feeding. The falconers are often stern, focused individuals, demanding silence and careful movement. A sudden noise or clumsy action could startle the valuable birds, bringing the falconer's wrath down upon you. You might be tasked with cleaning cages or fetching water. Intricate work requiring careful hands in close proximity to sharp talons and beaks. In these areas, surrounded by animals far larger or more dangerous than yourself, your vulnerability is starkly apparent. You are low to the ground, easily missed, easily injured. The work is often filthy, the environment hazardous, and the human inhabitants indifferent or hostile. It's another facet of castle life where survival depends on vigilance, quick reflexes, and the ability to make yourself as small and insignificant as possible, hoping to pass unnoticed through domains ruled by beasts and the men who master them. Let's talk about health, or rather, the distinct lack of it. In this world, illness and injury are constant threats for everyone. But for you, the risks are amplified, and the care is virtually non-existent. Your small stature itself might be linked to underlying conditions, skeletal issues, chronic pain, that are simply accepted as part of your being, never investigated, never treated. The castle environment is inherently unhealthy. The dampness seeps into your bones, aggravating any joint pain. The poor sanitation, rushes on the floor rarely changed, inadequate waste disposal, proximity to animals, breeds disease. Respiratory illnesses from the constant smoke and cold air are common. Skin ailments from filth, harsh cleaning agents, or infestations like lice and fleas are a daily reality. You might scratch constantly, your skin raw and inflamed, finding only temporary relief, if any. Imagine developing a fever, a deep cough that rattles your small frame. There's no sickbed for you, no physician summoned. At best, you might be allowed to rest in your straw pile if you're too weak to stand, but more likely, you'll be expected to work through it, perhaps earning blows for your slowness or clumsiness. A severe illness could easily be fatal, seen not as a tragedy, but as an inconvenience, the loss of a curiosity, easily replaced. Injuries are frequent. A fall on uneven stairs, a burn from the kitchen hearth, a kick from a horse or a guard, a cut from a dropped tool. There are no antiseptics beyond perhaps a splash of wine, if you're lucky. or urine, more likely. Wounds fester easily. A simple cut could lead to infection, swelling, agonizing pain, and eventually blood poisoning or gangrene. You might try to bind a wound yourself with a scrap of dirty cloth, hiding the injury for fear of being deemed useless and punished or discarded. Broken bones are a particular terror. Setting a bone correctly requires skill rarely wasted on someone like you. A fracture might be ignored or crudely splintered, leaving you with a permanent limp or a useless limb. The pain would be excruciating, endured without relief. Painkillers are unheard of for servants, let alone for the castle's dwarf. Dental problems are rampant. An aching tooth is simply endured until it either falls out or develops into a life-threatening abscess. There are no dentists, only perhaps a blacksmith who might be called upon for a brutal, unanesthetized extraction if the pain becomes unbearable or the swelling obvious. Beyond acute illness and injury, there's the grinding wear and tear on your body. Carrying heavy loads, performing repetitive tasks, enduring physical abuse, it all takes a toll. Your joints might ache constantly. Your back might be perpetually sore. Malnutrition weakens your constitution, making you more susceptible to every ailment. The food you receive, when you receive it, is likely the poorest quality: scraps, stale bread, thin gruel, lacking the nutrients needed for health and strength. There's a profound sense of physical vulnerability. Your body is not your own. It belongs to your master, yet its maintenance is entirely neglected. You are expected to perform, to entertain, to serve, regardless of pain or sickness. Complaining is futile, likely punished. You learn to endure, to hide your ailments, to push through the pain until you simply cannot anymore. Health is a luxury you cannot afford, and its absence is just another layer of the daily misery that defines your existence within these cold stone walls. Beyond the physical hardships and constant vigilance, there's a deeper, more insidious aspect to your existence: the erosion of your identity and the profound loneliness. You are defined entirely by your role, by your physical difference. Who were you before you came to this castle? Do you even remember? Memories of family, of a life outside these walls, might be hazy, dreamlike, or perhaps deliberately suppressed because they are too painful. Your name itself might not be your own, as we touched upon. You might be called Pip, Tiny, or some other diminutive or mocking label bestowed upon you by your masters or fellow servants. Hearing it constantly reinforces your status as property, as something less than a person with a history and a heritage. You have no surname that matters here, no lineage that is acknowledged. You are simply the castle's dwarf. Friendship is a dangerous luxury. While you share quarters and tasks with other servants, forming genuine bonds is difficult. They might pity you, fear association with you, lest they also become targets of mockery, or simply see you as too different, too alien. Any kindness shown might be fleeting, easily withdrawn under pressure or scrutiny from superiors. Sharing confidences is risky. Information can be weaponized in the constant struggle for favor or survival within the servant hierarchy. You learn to be self-reliant, to keep your thoughts and feelings locked away. Imagine the isolation during moments of communal activity among the other servants. Perhaps a rare moment of shared rest, a whispered song, or gossip exchanged in hushed tones. You might be physically present, but emotionally excluded, an outsider looking in. Their jokes, their complaints, their small joys, they often don't include you. You might try to join in, only to be met with awkward silence or a quick change of subject. The gulf between your experience and theirs feels vast and unbridgeable. Even your appearance in official records, if any exist, or in artistic depictions like tapestries or paintings commissioned by the Lord, reinforces this lack of identity. You are often shown simply as a decorative element, a symbol of the Lord's status, perhaps holding a goblet or standing near a hunting dog. You are rarely depicted with individual features, just a generic representation of the dwarf, often stylized or caricatured. You are an object, not a subject. This constant dehumanization takes a psychological toll. You might internalize the mockery, begin to doubt your own worth, Moments of defiance or anger must be suppressed, leading to a simmering resentment hidden beneath a mask of passivity. Or perhaps, more tragically, you might adopt the jester's role more fully, playing up the caricature expected of you as a survival mechanism, finding a twisted sort of safety in fulfilling their lowest expectations. Laughter directed at you, even cruel laughter, is still a form of attention, perhaps preferable to complete invisibility or outright hostility. The lack of privacy extends beyond the physical. Your thoughts, your feelings, your past, none of it is considered your own. You are constantly observed, judged, defined by others. Finding a sense of self, a core of identity, separate from the role imposed upon you, is an ongoing, often losing battle fought in the silent confines of your own mind. The loneliness is profound, not just the absence of companionship, but the absence of recognition as a fellow human being. Your lack of status, your perceived otherness, translates directly into a lack of safety, even in the most mundane tasks. Consider the simple act of moving through the castle. We've touched upon the dangers of crowded corridors and indifferent servants, but it extends further. You might be tasked with carrying messages or small items from one part of the sprawling complex to another. A task seemingly simple, yet fraught with peril, specifically because of who you are. Imagine being sent from the main keep to the armory, or perhaps to deliver a note to a guard captain in one of the gatehouses. You clutch the message or object, acutely aware of its importance. Failure to deliver it promptly or intact could mean severe punishment. You navigate familiar corridors, but your perspective is different. Stairs designed for longer legs are steep and tiring for you. Heavy doors require your full effort to open. Dark corners, easily ignored by others, feel menacing, potential hiding spots for someone looking for cruel amusement. The castle is a working environment, often chaotic. You might have to cross the bailey, the open courtyard bustling with activity. Soldiers drill, horses are led to the blacksmith, carts loaded with supplies rumble over the cobblestones. You are a small, slow-moving obstacle in this environment. A horse might shy unexpectedly. A cart driver might not see you. A group of rough soldiers, bored or drunk, might decide you are a convenient target for a thrown stone or a crude remark. There's no protective bubble around you. You are expected to navigate these dangers alone. Sometimes, the errands themselves are deliberately dangerous. Perhaps you are sent through less used, poorly lit passageways, known to be infested with rats or prone to collapsing masonry. Or maybe you are dispatched outside the main walls, perhaps to a nearby workshop, or even into the surrounding settlement. The reasoning might be perverse. No one would suspect such a small messenger, masking a callous disregard for your safety. Outside the relative, though minimal order of the inner castle, the dangers multiply. Stray dogs, suspicious villagers, even bandits on less traveled paths. These are threats you face alone, armed with nothing but your wits and the desperate hope of returning unharmed. There's no concept of safe working conditions. If a task is deemed necessary by your superiors, you perform it, regardless of the risk. You might be ordered to climb onto high shelves in the storerooms, balancing precariously to retrieve some item, the risk of falling onto the hard stone floor ever present. You might be sent into cramped, dusty spaces, under floorboards to retrieve a dropped object, or into narrow chimneys for cleaning, places where getting stuck or injured is a real possibility, and where your cries for help might go unheard. This constant exposure to potential harm, coupled with the knowledge that your well-being is of no consequence to those in charge, creates a background hum of anxiety. Every errand, every movement outside your designated safe, though still unpleasant zones, carries risk. You learn to assess routes, to listen intently for approaching footsteps, to anticipate potential threats. Survival isn't just about enduring humiliation or hardship. It's about navigating a physically dangerous world with no safety net, where your small size makes you not pitiable, but uniquely vulnerable. Your existence is precarious not just moment to moment, but in the long term as well. You are, fundamentally, property, Like a prized hound, a trained falcon, or an exotic piece of furniture, your presence in the castle is subject to the whims and fortunes of your master. This understanding brings a unique kind of dread, a constant instability underlying the daily grind. Imagine the arrival of important visitors, perhaps another noble family, a powerful bishop, or even envoys from a rival court. During the feasts and formalities, you are displayed, as usual. But sometimes the attention you receive carries a different weight. A visiting lord might express admiration for his host's collection, his eyes lingering on you. A casual remark might be made. A fine specimen. Does he juggle? Followed by a negotiation conducted entirely over your head, as if discussing livestock. You might overhear snippets of conversation, hushed words exchanged between your master and a guest, mentioning your name or the label assigned to you, alongside terms of value or exchange. The cold realization dawns. You could be traded, sold like a commodity, perhaps to settle a debt, seal an alliance, or simply because your master has grown bored of you and fancies a new curiosity offered by his guest. Or perhaps you are considered a gift. A visiting dignitary might be presented with you as a token of esteem or goodwill. A little amusement for your own household, my lord. Atzung. You would be handed over, perhaps with a new, equally ridiculous costume, expected to show gratitude for the honor of being passed from one owner to another. There is no question of your consent, no consideration of your feelings. Your life can be uprooted in an instant, sent away to an unknown castle, an unknown master, potentially even harsher conditions. This threat isn't just hypothetical. You might have seen it happen to others, or perhaps you yourself arrived at this castle as a child, captured or sold, torn from whatever life you knew before. The memory, however faint, fuels the fear that it could happen again. You are never truly settled, never secure. Your loyalty, your service, your efforts to please, they offer no guarantee against being disposed of when convenient. Even within the same household, your position can change drastically. If your master dies, his heir might have no interest in maintaining a dwarf servant. You could be sold off quickly, perhaps even abandoned, or turned out of the castle gates to fend for yourself in a world deeply hostile to someone like you. If the castle falls under siege or changes hands through conquest, you are part of the spoils, your fate entirely dependent on the cruelty or caprice of the new victors. This constant insecurity shapes your interactions. You might try desperately to make yourself useful, to anticipate your master's desires, to perform your humiliating duties with feigned enthusiasm, all in the hope of retaining your place, however miserable it may be. But ultimately, you know your fate is not in your own hands. You are a possession, subject to the unpredictable currents of power, wealth, and whim that govern the lives of the nobility. The ground beneath your feet feels perpetually unstable. Sleep offers no true escape, merely a dulling of the senses before the inevitable return to harsh consciousness. But even within the waking nightmare, the mind clings to small things, tiny anchors in a sea of indifference. Possessions, not treasures, not even comforts, but minuscule fragments of the world you might, for a fleeting moment, consider yours. This, you learn quickly, is perhaps the most dangerous illusion of all. Imagine finding something, not something valuable in the eyes of the castle's masters. Gold, silver, even decent food are far beyond your reach and perilous to acquire. No, something simpler. A discarded ribbon, perhaps, fallen from a lady's elaborate sleeve, its silk surprisingly smooth against your calloused fingers. Or a bird's feather, unusually bright, found caught on a windowsill high above the bailey, retrieved with precarious climbing when no one was looking. Maybe even just a perfectly smooth grey stone, washed clean by the rain in the courtyard, feeling cool and solid in your palm. This object, worthless to anyone else, becomes a focal point. In the relentless drudgery and humiliation, it represents something found, not given, not assigned. It's a secret connection to a world outside the suffocating hierarchy. Holding it hidden in your fist, feeling its texture, offers a sliver of autonomy, a silent defiance against the crushing weight of your existence. But where do you keep such a thing? Your garish costume has no pockets. Or if it does, they are shallow and easily searched or spilled. Your sleeping space, that shared pile of flea-ridden straw, offers no privacy. Eyes are everywhere. Other servants, equally desperate, might steal anything perceived as potentially useful or even just different. A scrap of ribbon could be traded for a crust of bread. A shiny feather might amuse a child, earning a moment's favor. Even a simple stone could be snatched out of spite or boredom, and discovery by an overseer. That's far worse. Possessing anything unauthorized, no matter how trivial, could be twisted into theft, hoarding, or insolence. Punishment would be swift and disproportionate. A beating, confinement, the confiscation of the treasure, accompanied by mocking laughter. So, the act of hiding becomes another layer of constant, gnawing anxiety. You survey your limited world with desperate ingenuity. A loose stone in the wall near your sleeping spot. Too obvious, likely already used by others. Tucked within the straw? Easily disturbed or found during a random search. Sewn into the lining of your ridiculous tunic? The lump might be felt, the stitches noticed. You might try burying it beneath the dirt floor in a dark corner of a seldom used passageway, marking the spot with a subtle scratch only you would recognize. But floors are swept, passages used unexpectedly. Or perhaps you find a crack high up in the mortar of a stable wall, requiring a risky climb each time you wish to retrieve or check on your hidden item. Each visit is fraught with the fear of being seen, of finding the hiding place empty, or worse, finding someone waiting for you. The found object, meant to be a tiny spark of personal ownership, becomes another source of fear. Its secret presence is a constant burden. You find yourself glancing towards the hiding spot, worrying if it's still safe, if anyone saw you near it. The small comfort it provides is poisoned by the perpetual risk of its discovery. It teaches you the bitterest lesson of your existence here. You own nothing, not even your secrets. Every scrap, every moment, every thought is subject to the castle's suffocating control. The smooth stone feels less like a treasure now, and more like a heavy weight in your gut, a reminder of the invisible chains that bind you far tighter than any physical restraint. The vast echoing spaces of the Great Hall or the chaotic inferno of the kitchens represent one kind of danger, the overt threat posed by those with power. But there exists another, more insidious battleground, the cramped, damp, poorly lit spaces where the castle's lowest servants congregate. Here, away from the direct gaze of nobility, a different, yet equally brutal hierarchy asserts itself. Survival isn't just about dodging knights and placating lords. It's about navigating the treacherous currents of resentment, desperation, and petty cruelties that flow among those who share your lowly station. Imagine yourself assigned to the laundry, not the fine linens of the lord and lady. Those are handled by more trusted hands. But the coarse, heavy woolens, the greasy kitchen rags, the sweat-stiffened undergarments of the guards. The air in this low-ceilinged chamber, perhaps located near the castle moat, is thick with the acrid smell of harsh lye soap, damp fabric, and mildew. Steam rises from large wooden tubs filled with murky, lukewarm water, clouding the already dim light filtering through a single, grime-coated arrow slit. You stand on a small wooden stool, another constant reminder of your stature, plunging stained tunics into the stinging water. Your hands, already raw from previous chores, burn from the lye. Beside you, other figures toil. A gaunt scullery maid with perpetually red eyes, scrubbing furiously at a pot-blackened cloth. An older woman, her face a roadmap of weary lines, wringing out heavy blankets with surprising strength, her knuckles white. A sullen youth, perhaps a kennel boy temporarily reassigned, listlessly stirring a tub with a wooden paddle, splashing dirty water onto the stone floor, and onto you. There's little conversation, only the rhythmic sounds of scrubbing, sloshing water, and the occasional grunt of effort. Yet the silence is thick with unspoken tensions. Eyes dart sideways, assessing, comparing. Who works fastest? Who shirks? Who has managed to pilfer a slightly less stained rag to use? Who incurred the steward's displeasure this morning? Every servant here is acutely aware of their position relative to the others. A pecking order established through subtle intimidation, rumour, and the desperate scramble for the smallest advantage. You are, inevitably, at the bottom. Your brightly coloured, impractical costume, even if stained and damp now, marks you as different. An outsider, even among outcasts. The kennel boy might accidentally splash you more often, a small act of aggression he wouldn't dare direct at the older woman. The scullery maid might snatch the slightly better scrubbing brush just as you reach for it, her expression blank but her eyes conveying a fleeting, mean-spirited triumph. The older woman might simply ignore you entirely, her silence a heavy wall of dismissal. Perhaps a minor dispute breaks out. Two servants argue in harsh whispers over a patch of relatively clean floor space to lay out rinsed items. Accusations fly, of laziness, of stealing soap, of currying favour. The argument flares, then subsides, leaving a residue of bitterness. You keep your head down, scrubbing with fierce, desperate concentration, praying not to be drawn in. In these disputes, the weakest, the most different, often becomes the scapegoat. A dropped item, a task poorly done. It's easy to shift the blame onto the little one, who can't effectively fight back. There is no solidarity here, no sense of shared struggle leading to mutual support. Misery does not love company in these depths. It breeds suspicion and resentment. A kind word is rare and often suspect. What does the speaker want in return? A shared crust of bread might be offered, but it comes with invisible strings attached, an expectation of future subservience or complicity. You learn to trust no one, to rely only on your own vigilance. The physical discomfort of the work, the stinging lie, the aching back from bending over the tub on your stool, the pervasive damp chill that seeps into your bones, is almost secondary to the psychological strain. You are surrounded by people, yet utterly alone. Their struggles mirror your own in some ways, but your perceived strangeness creates an unbridgeable gap. They see their own hardships reflected in the indifference of the lords, but they see your hardship as somehow deserved, a consequence of your difference. You are a constant, uncomfortable reminder of how much lower one could potentially fall, and for that, consciously or unconsciously, they resent you. As you finally haul a basket of heavy, wet laundry, a task requiring all your strength, your small legs straining on the slippery floor, towards the drying lines in a drafty outer passage, you feel their eyes on your back. Not eyes of sympathy, but of calculation, assessment, perhaps even a flicker of contempt. Below stairs, the fight for survival is just as fierce, the wounds just as deep, even if inflicted not by swords, but by whispers, shoves, and the crushing weight of collective indifference. The stone walls of the castle promise shelter, a bulwark against the world outside. But for you, trapped within, the walls are less a shield and more a conductor, transmitting the raw, untamed moods of the weather directly into your vulnerable existence. The changing seasons don't just paint the landscape beyond the arrow slits. They seep through the very fabric of the castle, creating microclimates of misery that affect you more acutely than the larger inhabitants. Consider the biting cold of deep winter. While the lord and lady huddle near roaring hearths in chambers hung with heavy tapestries, and even the guards benefit from thick cloaks and proximity to braziers, you experience the cold differently. Your sleeping corner, likely situated against an outer wall or in a notoriously drafty passage, becomes a pocket of ice. The thin straw offers negligible insulation against the stone floor that radiates a deep, penetrating chill, seeming to draw the warmth directly from your small body. Your costume, designed for spectacle, not survival, is useless against it. The bright, thin wool might as well be air. You wake with limbs stiff and numb, your breath pluming in the frigid air even indoors. Tasks become exponentially harder. Scrubbing floors means plunging your hands into water that feels like liquid ice, numbing your fingers to the bone and leaving painful chilblains. Carrying messages through exposed walkways or across the bailey means facing winds that whip through the battlements, stinging your face and threatening to tear the ridiculous cap from your head. The wind finds every gap in the ill-fitting tunic, chilling you relentlessly. You see the larger servants bundled in layers, their movements slowed by the cold, but fundamentally protected. You have no such luxury. Your small size means a greater surface area relative to your mass, losing heat faster, feeling the cold more intensely. Then there's the damp. Rain lashes against the stone, finding its way through unseen cracks in the mortar, down ill-maintained chimneys, under poorly sealed doors. Puddles form on the uneven floors of lower passages. A persistent dampness clings to the walls, fostering mildew and a smell that compounds the usual castle odours. For you, low to the ground, this dampness is a constant companion. Your straw bedding becomes sodden and cold. Your clothes, perpetually damp, never seem to truly dry, clinging unpleasantly to your skin and chilling you further. The risk of coughs, fevers and lung ailments, already high, skyrockets in these conditions, with no remedy available beyond enduring it. Conversely, imagine the oppressive heat of high summer. While the thick stone walls offer some respite from the direct sun compared to being outdoors, the castle's inner workings generate their own heat. The kitchens become an unbearable inferno, radiating heat far into the surrounding corridors. The blacksmith's forge adds its shimmering waves of heat to the bailey. The sheer number of bodies packed within the walls, human and animal, raises the temperature and humidity in the lower levels and enclosed spaces. For you, the heat brings a different kind of suffering. Your costume becomes a suffocating trap, the wool itching fiercely against sweat-slicked skin, tasks requiring exertion, running errands, turning a spit, even just standing for hours in the Great Hall, leave you drenched in sweat, dizzy, and gasping for air in the stagnant, overheated atmosphere. Finding a cool spot is nearly impossible. The upper levels might catch a breeze, but you are confined to the lower reaches. The stone floors, frigid in winter, now offer little relief, often feeling warm and sticky underfoot. Sunlight, when it streams through a high window, isn't a welcome sight, but a burning spotlight, heating the flagstones beneath it to an uncomfortable degree. You learn to navigate by the shadows, seeking the temporary coolness they offer. Dehydration is a constant risk, as access to clean water is limited and often controlled by others. You might steal sips from a horse trough or catch rainwater, risking contamination, just to soothe a parched throat. The weather isn't just an external force, it's an internal reality of the castle, felt differently depending on one's status and location. For you, lacking proper clothing, adequate shelter, or the freedom to seek comfort, the extremes of cold, heat, and damp are not mere inconveniences. They are active participants in the daily struggle for survival, exacerbating every hardship, weakening your already fragile body, and reminding you constantly of your place at the very bottom, exposed to the elements even within the supposed safety of the stone walls. In a world built for being significantly taller than yourself, even the simple act of moving between levels becomes a perilous undertaking. Stairs, those ubiquitous features of castle architecture, are not mere conduits but monumental challenges, each flight a potential death trap, each landing a temporary, precarious plateau. The castle stretches vertically as much as horizontally, and navigating this dimension is a constant source of anxiety and physical strain. Imagine being summoned from the lower kitchens to deliver a message to the solar, the private chambers of the Lord and Lady, often located high up in the keep. The journey involves multiple flights of stairs, likely winding stone spirals or steep, narrow wooden steps. For others, it's a routine climb. For you, it's an ascent up a cliff face. The stone steps are often worn smooth and uneven from centuries of foot traffic, their surfaces slick with dampness or accumulated grime. Each step might reach your knee, or even higher, requiring a significant physical effort to hoist yourself up. You can't take them one at a time in a normal stride. It's more like climbing. You use your hands, gripping the cold, rough stone of the wall or the step above for leverage. Your brightly coloured tunic hinders movement, catching on edges, threatening to trip you. The spiral staircases are particularly treacherous. They twist upwards into darkness, the only light often coming from distant arrow slits or flickering torches that cast confusing shadows. The narrow end of the wedge-shaped steps offers little purchase for your feet. You hug the central pillar, where the steps are widest, but this means navigating a tighter curve. Looking up induces dizziness. Looking down reveals a dizzying drop, the worn steps spiraling away beneath you like the inside of a malevolent seashell. The echo of your own strained breathing seems unnaturally loud in the enclosed space. Speed is often demanded. Quickly now, little one. But speed is your enemy on these stairs. A misplaced foot, a moment of lost balance, could send you tumbling backwards down the unforgiving stone steps. Injury would be almost certain. Bruises, broken bones, a cracked skull. And who would come to your aid? More likely, you'd be cursed for the delay, for bleeding on the steps, for being clumsy. So, you climb with a slow, desperate caution that often earns impatient shouts from above or below. Descending is no easier. The jarring impact on your short legs as you half jump down each step sends shocks through your body. It's harder to maintain balance, the pull of gravity a constant threat. You might resort to sitting and sliding down each step, a slow and undignified process that invites mockery if witnessed, but feels safer than risking a headlong fall. Wooden stairs, perhaps leading to storage lofts or servant quarters in the upper reaches of timber-framed buildings within the castle walls, present different hazards. They creak ominously underfoot. Steps might be loose, rotten, or missing entirely. Splinters snag at your clothes and skin. The gaps between steps offer terrifying glimpses of the drop below. Even reaching things becomes a vertical challenge. Shelves are built for average height. Fetching items often requires climbing onto stools, benches, or even tables, always a precarious activity. Imagine needing to retrieve a specific spice jar from a high shelf in the pantry. You drag a heavy wooden stool across the floor, its legs scraping loudly. Balancing on it, stretching your arm to its utmost limit, your fingers just brush the dusty jar. The stool wobbles. Your heart pounds. Success means completing the task. Failure means a fall, a shattered jar, and inevitable punishment. The castle's very architecture constantly reinforces your vulnerability. Door handles are placed high. Windowsills are often above your eye level, denying you even a glimpse of the outside world unless you climb. Battlements, offering panoramic views to others, are simply high walls to you, their protective crenellations far above your head. You exist in the lower stratum of this vertical world, acutely aware of the effort and danger involved in any upward movement, forever craning your neck to see what others observe casually, forever struggling against the simple tyranny of height. Every structure, no matter how grand, has its less glamorous necessities, its hidden systems for dealing with the inevitable byproducts of life. In a medieval castle, these systems are rudimentary, often unpleasant, and invariably maintained by those at the absolute bottom of the hierarchy. And so, inevitably, your duties will drag you into the literal underbelly of the castle, confronting you with the filth that the stone walls and tapestries strive to conceal. Imagine the summons comes not for entertainment, nor for kitchen drudgery, but for a task whispered with distaste even by other low-ranking servants, dealing with the night soil or cleaning the garderobe chute. Perhaps it begins with collecting the heavy ceramic chamber pots from the lesser nobles or guests' chambers, rooms you only ever glimpse briefly, noting the relative luxury before hefting the unpleasantly full vessel. Carrying these pots is a trial in itself. They are heavy, unwieldy, and prone to splashing. Your small stature makes balancing them difficult as you navigate narrow corridors and steep stairs. The stench is immediate and overpowering, a thick, ammoniacal reek that clings to your clothes and hair, seeming to coat the inside of your nostrils. Other servants give you a wide berth, their faces wrinkled in disgust, reinforcing your isolation even as you perform a necessary, if vile, function. The destination might be a designated cesspit located in a remote corner of the outer bailey, or perhaps a specific point along the castle wall where waste is simply tipped into the moat below. Reaching it involves crossing potentially crowded areas, enduring the stares and muttered comments, feeling acutely aware of the repulsive burden you carry. Emptying the pots requires strength you barely possess. Tipping the heavy containers over a wall or into a pit, trying desperately not to splash yourself with the contents. The smell from the pit itself, a concentrated miasma of weeks or months of accumulated waste, rises up to meet you, threatening to gag you. Or perhaps your task is even worse, cleaning a garderobe chute. These vertical shafts, built into the castle walls, allowed waste from upper-level latrines to fall directly into the moat or a dedicated pit. Over time, however, these chutes could become blocked or coated with filth. Your small size, perversely, makes you ideal for reaching into the lower sections of these chutes to clear obstructions or scrape away accumulated grime. You might be lowered partway down on a rope, a terrifying prospect, dangling in a narrow, lightless shaft thick with unimaginable stench, or forced to crawl into the base of the chute from the outside. The air is thick enough to taste, crawling with flies and unseen vermin attracted to the filth. You use crude tools, perhaps a long stick or a scraper, to dislodge blockages, the work releasing fresh waves of nauseating odour. The filth coats your hands, your arms, your already soiled tunic. It's work that feels designed not just for sanitation, but for utter degradation. Beyond human waste, there's the general refuse of castle life. Kitchen scraps not fit for the dogs or pigs, soiled rushes swept from the great hall floor, broken pottery, discarded animal bones, general muck and mire. This might be collected in middens, large refuse heaps, often located strategically downwind, but whose smell still permeates the air on hot or humid days. Your job might involve hauling baskets of this rubbish, sorting through it for anything potentially salvageable, a task fraught with the risk of cuts and infection, or simply trying to maintain some semblance of order in the ever-growing piles. These tasks are performed without protective gear, without adequate cleaning supplies afterwards. You might rinse your hands in a bucket of cold water, but the stench lingers, a phantom reminder of your duties. The risk of disease is immense. Cuts or scratches sustained during this work can easily become infected from the pervasive bacteria. Dysentery, typhoid, and countless other ailments fester in these conditions, and you are exposed to them daily, intimately. Your brightly coloured costume becomes stained and fouled, a mockery of cleanliness amidst the filth you handle. This is the hidden reality beneath the castle's veneer of power and nobility. While lords feast and ladies embroider, you are immersed in the physical evidence of their bodily functions, their waste, their discarded remnants. It's a stark, unavoidable reminder of your place. You are the cleaner of the unmentionable, the handler of the discarded, assigned the tasks that strip away any lingering shred of dignity, reducing you to a functionary of filth. The grandeur of the castle feels impossibly distant when you are knee-deep, literally or figuratively, in its refuse. The castle teems with life, not just human, but a vast, often unseen, ecosystem of creatures that share your lowly existence or, conversely, enjoy privileges far exceeding your own. Your constant proximity to the ground, the dark corners you inhabit, and the refuse you handle bring you into intimate, unwelcome contact with the castle's less celebrated inhabitants. The rats, the insects, the things that scuttle and bite. At the same time, you witness the baffling elevation of certain animals, pets, and hunting beasts, treated with a care and consideration utterly denied to you. Imagine lying on your straw pallet in the pre-dawn chill. Sleep is a distant shore, kept at bay by hunger pangs or the ache in your limbs. Then you hear it, the faint scratching, the rustle in the straw near your head. Your eyes snap open in the darkness. Is it just another servant stirring? Or is it them? The rats. They are bold here, thriving in the abundance of dropped food, stored grains, and general filth. They are sleek, well-fed shadows that dart along walls and disappear into crevices. You feel a prickle of fear and revulsion. A cornered rat can bite, and their bites fester. You've seen the swollen, inflamed wounds on others. You lie perfectly still, listening, trying to pinpoint the sound. Is it near your hidden crust of bread, saved from yesterday's meager ration? Is it exploring the edge of your thin blanket? The uncertainty is a form of torture. You might kick out suddenly, hoping to scare it away, or curl into a tighter ball, pulling the rough blanket over your head, hoping it ignores you. They are a constant presence, a reminder of the decay and neglect that permeates the lower levels. You find their droppings near food stores, hear them gnawing within the walls, sometimes even see their beady eyes reflecting the torchlight in a dark corridor. They are rivals for scarce resources, carriers of disease, and symbols of the rot beneath the surface. Insects are another plague. Fleas infest the straw bedding, leaving itchy red welts on your skin that you scratch raw in your sleep. Lice are a constant threat, passed easily in the crowded conditions, requiring humiliating delousing sessions if discovered, often involving harsh chemicals or shaving of hair. In summer, flies swarm around refuse areas and kitchens, landing on food, on you, their buzzing a maddening soundtrack to the heat and stench. Cockroaches scuttle across floors at night, disappearing instantly when light appears. You learn to live with a constant crawling sensation on your skin, real or imagined. Then there is the jarring contrast with the favoured animals. The lady of the castle might possess small lapdogs, pampered creatures fed scraps from the high table, adorned with ribbons, sleeping on velvet cushions in her chambers. You might be tasked with carrying one of these yapping, trembling animals, its delicate paws never touching the filthy castle floors. The dog might wear a jewelled collar worth more than you would earn in a lifetime. It might snap at you with impunity, its displeasure earning you a sharp rebuke from its mistress. You handle it with extreme care, terrified of dropping it or causing it any discomfort, knowing the repercussions would be severe. The injustice is a bitter pill. This creature, simply by virtue of its ownership by nobility, enjoys a life of comfort and safety utterly alien to you. Hunting hounds, while living in less luxurious conditions, are valuable assets, treated with professional care by the kennel masters. They are well fed on meat you can only dream of, their coats brushed, their injuries tended to. Falcons and hawks in the mews are even more prized, symbols of status and power. Their handlers treat them with a focused respect, their well-being paramount. You observe this disparity with a dull ache. These animals, bred for sport or companionship, are afforded a level of care, value, and even affection that you, a sentient being capable of thought and feeling, are systematically denied. You are less valuable than a dog, less important than a bird of prey. This hierarchy, where certain beasts rank higher than certain humans, is a fundamental, brutal truth of your world. You fight off rats for scraps while lapdogs feast. You endure flea bites while hounds are groomed. You perform degrading tasks while falcons sit hooded and revered. The castle's ecosystem, both seen and unseen, constantly reinforces your position at the very bottom, sometimes even below the beasts. Silence is a luxury unknown in the depths of the castle where you dwell. Your world is a cacophony, a relentless assault of noise that frays the nerves and denies any possibility of true peace or quiet contemplation. From the moment you are jolted awake until you collapse back into uneasy slumber, sound dictates the rhythm of your fear and discomfort. Before dawn, it begins not with birdsong, but with the harsh clang of a dropped bucket, the grating sound of a heavy door being unbarred, the muffled shouts of guards changing shifts, the restless stamping of horses in the nearby stables. These are the opening notes of the daily symphony of toil and tension. As the castle wakes, the volume swells. Booted feet clatter on stone floors, echoing unnervingly in the corridors. Orders are barked, not spoken. Metal scrapes against metal. The blacksmith's hammer, the sharpening of blades, the clang of pots in the kitchen. Wood groans under strain. The creak of cartwheels in the bailey, the thud of firewood being stacked, the slamming of heavy doors. For you, positioned low to the ground, sounds often seem amplified, distorted. The thundering passage of a group of knights down a hallway feels like an earthquake, vibrating through the floor and into your bones. The sudden, sharp bark of a hound nearby can make you jump, heart pounding, even if the threat isn't directed at you. You learn to interpret these sounds, to differentiate between the routine clatter and the noises that signal immediate danger. The raised voice of a specific cruel overseer, the heavy tread of someone known for casual violence, the sudden silence that might precede an outburst. In the great hall during preparations or feasts, the noise is overwhelming. The roar of conversation, the clatter of pewter, the shouts for more wine, the braying laughter, it all merges into a deafening wave that washes over you, making it impossible to think, only to endure. Your own small voice, if you are forced to speak or recite something, is swallowed by the din, rendering your contribution insignificant even as you are painfully visible. Even supposedly quieter areas offer no respite. In the laundry, the rhythmic slosh and scrub is punctuated by harsh coughs and muttered complaints. In the stables, the constant shifting, snorting and whinnying of horses mixes with the shouts of stable hands and the buzz of flies. Near the kennels, the barking is incessant, a nerve-wracking chorus. Even in your sleeping corner, the snores, coughs and rustlings of other sleepers provide a constant, close proximity soundtrack to the darkness. There are also the sudden, sharp sounds that pierce the general clamour, each one a potential alarm. A dropped platter shattering on the floor. Who will be blamed? A scream from the bailey, an accident, or violence. The unexpected blast of a horn from the battlements. An arrival, a departure, an alert. Each unexpected noise triggers a jolt of adrenaline, a tightening in your chest. You live in a state of constant auditory vigilance, your ears straining to decipher threats from the background noise. This relentless soundscape wears you down. There is no quiet corner to retreat to, no moment of genuine silence to gather your thoughts or soothe your frayed nerves. Even when tasks require concentration, like mending your tunic or hiding a found object, the surrounding noise intrudes, making focus difficult, increasing the risk of mistakes. The lack of silence is another form of oppression, denying you the mental space to process the daily humiliations, to feel anything other than the immediate, overwhelming sensory input of your environment. Sometimes, perhaps late at night when most of the castle sleeps, a semblance of quiet might descend. But it's a fragile, temporary state, underscored by the distant howl of a wolf, the creak of aging timbers, the ever-present scuttling of rats within the walls. It's not true peace, just a lessening of the usual assault. And you know, with certainty, that the cacophony will begin again with the first light, trapping you once more in the inescapable, tyrannical noise of castle life. Hunger is more than an occasional discomfort. It is a constant, gnawing presence, a dull ache that underlies every moment of your existence. While the castle kitchens produce vast quantities of food for the tables above, very little of substance trickles down to your level. Sustenance for you is a matter of scraps, leftovers, and the relentless, energy-sapping reality of never quite getting enough. Forget the images of groaning boards laden with roasted meats, pies, and fine breads that grace the great hall. Your meals, when they come, are likely served communally in a drafty corner or a designated servants' area, far removed from the warmth and plenty of the high table. What arrives is often the absolute dregs, thin, greasy broth with maybe a few floating shreds of unidentifiable vegetable, coarse dark bread, often stale or bordering on mouldy, perhaps porridge made from oats or barley, watery and unsalted. Portions are meagre, distributed quickly and consumed without ceremony. Imagine the scene. You huddle on a low bench, or perhaps directly on the cold floor, clutching a rough wooden bowl. The steward or a designated kitchen hand ladles out the slop. There's no choice, no asking for more. You eat quickly, defensively, guarding your bowl against accidental spills or the potential snatching hand of a hungrier, bolder servant nearby. The taste is often bland, sometimes sour or burnt. It's fuel, not pleasure. Its purpose is merely to dull the sharpest pangs of hunger, to provide just enough energy to continue working, but never enough to feel truly satisfied or nourished. The contrast with the feasts you witness is a form of psychological torture. Standing in the great hall, perhaps forced to perform your humiliating dances or jests, you are surrounded by the rich smells of roasting meat, spiced wine, and sweet pastries. You see platters piled high, watch nobles casually discard half-eaten delicacies onto the floor for the dogs, or onto the rushes, where they will later be swept up with other refuse. The sheer abundance, the casual waste, is staggering compared to the scarcity that defines your own diet. You might catch a dropped crust or be tossed a gnawed bone as a cruel joke, but these are isolated, often humiliating incidents, not reliable sources of food. Scavenging becomes a necessary survival skill, albeit a dangerous one. You learn to watch where scraps fall, to note where dogs might leave remnants, to check refuse buckets before they are fully emptied. Finding an intact, albeit dirty piece of bread or a chunk of meat overlooked in the chaos of clearing tables feels like finding treasure. But scavenging carries risks. Being caught pilfering, even discarded scraps, can lead to accusations of theft and severe punishment. Other servants are also scavenging, creating competition for the meager leavings. And the food itself might be contaminated, days old, crawling with insects, posing a health risk you are forced to ignore out of sheer desperation. Water is another constant concern. While wine flows freely at the high table, your access is likely limited to well water, often drawn in buckets and left standing, potentially contaminated, or perhaps water from a nearby stream if the castle has one. Fetching water is another laborious task, involving heavy buckets and slippery footing. Dehydration, especially during strenuous work or hot weather, adds another layer of physical misery to the constant hunger. The poor quality and scarcity of food take a visible toll. You are likely perpetually underweight, your growth stunted not just by your inherent condition, but by chronic malnutrition. Your resistance to illness is low. Wounds heal slowly. Your energy levels fluctuate wildly, often dipping into profound exhaustion. The bright colors of your costume stand in stark contrast to the pallor of your skin, the thinness of your limbs. Hunger fogs the mind, making concentration difficult, increasing the likelihood of mistakes in your tasks, mistakes that lead to punishment. Food, or the lack thereof, becomes a central obsession. You think about it constantly. You dream about feasts you will never taste. You eye every dropped crumb, every discarded apple core. The gnawing emptiness in your stomach is a physical manifestation of your status, a constant reminder that in this castle overflowing with resources, you are deemed worthy only of the barest, meanest crumbs required to keep you functioning, like a tool that needs occasional minimal oiling. True sustenance, like warmth, safety, or dignity, remains perpetually out of reach. There are places within the castle walls where the ambient threat level, already high, sharpens into something more immediate and volatile. These are the domains of the castle's muscle, the guard barracks, the training yard, the armory. While your duties might not typically require your presence there, occasional errands, fetching misplaced gear, delivering messages, or perhaps even being sent for some menial cleaning task deemed beneath a proper squire, will inevitably lead you into these bastions of masculine aggression and casual brutality. Entering these spaces feels like stepping into a different kind of cage, one where the bars are made of steel and simmering violence. Imagine being sent to the armory to retrieve a specific polishing cloth for a knight's helmet. The air here smells sharply of metal, oil, leather, and sweat. Racks of swords line the walls, their polished surfaces gleaming dully in the light from the forge, often located nearby, where the armourer might be hammering shape into glowing metal, sending sparks flying. Suits of armour stand like silent, menacing sentinels. Shields bearing various crests hang overhead. The tools of the armourer's trade, hammers, tongs, files, lie scattered on heavy workbenches. The atmosphere is one of focused, dangerous potential. Even when quiet, the room hums with the latent power of the weapons it contains. The armourer, likely a burly, soot-stained man with powerful arms, might ignore you completely, engrossed in his work. Or he might eye you with suspicion or amusement. A misplaced step, a clumsy touch on a prized piece of equipment, could earn you a bellowed curse or a clout to the head. You navigate the space carefully, feeling dwarfed not just by the men, but by the sheer weight and lethality of the objects surrounding you. Picking up the wrong cloth, disturbing a carefully arranged set of tools, the potential for error is high and the consequences severe. Worse still is an errand to the guard barracks. This is often a large, communal room, likely smelling strongly of unwashed bodies, stale ale, damp wool and leather. Off-duty guards might be lounging on rough bunks, gambling with dice, sharpening daggers, or engaging in loud, boastful conversation filled with crude jokes and stories of past skirmishes. The air crackles with testosterone and boredom, a dangerous combination. Your entrance in your ridiculous, brightly coloured tunic immediately draws attention. Conversation might halt momentarily, replaced by stares, nudges, and snickers. You are an anomaly here, an object of instant curiosity and potential sport. "Look what the cat dragged in," someone might shout, followed by coarse laughter. You deliver your message or perform your task with downcast eyes, trying to make yourself as small and invisible as possible, acutely aware of every gaze. This is where the casual cruelty you experience elsewhere can escalate without warning. A bored guard might decide to test his aim by flicking nutshells at you. Another might playfully trip you as you pass, sending you sprawling onto the dirty floor. Someone might grab your pointed cap and toss it around the room, forcing you to scramble after it amidst jeers and laughter. There's a constant threat of physical intimidation. A sudden shove, a hand clamping down hard on your shoulder, being backed into a corner. These men are trained for violence, and their pent-up energy and boredom often find outlets in petty bullying, especially towards someone perceived as weak and different. Complaining is unthinkable. These are the men who enforce the Lord's rule. They operate with near impunity within their own domain. An accusation from you would be dismissed, laughed off, or worse, earn you retribution later when no one else is watching. Survival here depends on speed, silence, and absorbing the humiliation without reaction. You learn to anticipate trouble, to read the mood of the room, to identify the most aggressive individuals and give them a wide berth. You complete your task as quickly as humanly possible, your heart pounding, your senses on high alert, and retreat back into the relatively safer chaos of the main castle corridors, the sound of their laughter echoing behind you. These spaces, the armory, the barracks, the training yard where squires practice with wooden swords, their mock battles often spilling over into genuine aggression, are potent reminders of the violence that underpins the castle's entire structure. While the Lord wields power through decree, these men wield it through physical force. And for you, lacking size, strength, or status, their domains are places of acute vulnerability, where the threat of harm is not just a possibility, but a constant, palpable presence. Even amidst the squalor and brutality, the castle maintains a space dedicated to the divine. The chapel. It might be a grand structure attached to the main keep or a smaller, humbler room tucked away, but its presence signifies the importance of faith in the lives of the nobility and, theoretically, all within the walls. Yet, for you, this sacred space offers little solace, serving instead as another venue for highlighting your exclusion and the vast gulf between the promises of religion and the reality of your existence. Imagine being tasked with cleaning the chapel floor in the quiet hours after morning prayers. The air here is different, cooler, stiller, smelling faintly of incense, beeswax candles, and old stone. Sunlight, if the chapel has windows, might stream through stained glass, casting pools of coloured light onto the flagstones, reds, blues, and golds depicting saints and biblical scenes. It's a stark contrast to the gloom and grime of your usual haunts. The silence, too, is different. It's not the tense silence of the laundry or the fearful silence of hiding, but a heavy, expectant quiet. Your footsteps, usually lost in the castle's din, echo here, seeming intrusive, profane. You move carefully, sweeping the dust and debris with a soft broom, acutely aware of the sanctity of the space, a sanctity from which you feel fundamentally disconnected. You might observe the altar, draped in fine cloth, perhaps adorned with silver or gold candlesticks. You see the carved wooden pews where the Lord, his family, and high-ranking guests sit during services. You might even glimpse the priest, a figure of authority clad in vestments, moving with a quiet dignity utterly alien to your world. He might pass you with a cursory glance, perhaps a murmured blessing, but there's no real connection, no sense that his prayers encompass the suffering of someone like you. Are you even allowed to attend services? Perhaps, but likely relegated to the very back, near the door, or in a drafty side aisle, far removed from the main congregation. Your presence, especially in your garish costume, might be seen as disruptive, a distraction from pious contemplation. You might hear the drone of the Latin Mass, understanding little of it, the words washing over you without meaning. You see the gestures, the kneeling, the crossing, performed by others with practiced ease, while you stand awkwardly, unsure of the rituals, feeling like an imposter. The stories depicted in the stained glass or carved into the stonework, tales of miracles, martyrdom, divine love, feel impossibly remote. What does the suffering of a saint have to do with the daily grind of avoiding kicks and scrubbing filth? Where is the divine intervention when a drunken squire decides to use you for target practice? The promises of heavenly reward seem hollow when earthly existence is a relentless cycle of pain and humiliation. Does God see you? Does he care? Or are you, like the rats in the walls, simply beneath his notice? Perhaps you find a moment alone, after the cleaning is done, before anyone else arrives. You might tentatively touch the cool stone of a pillar, look up at the vaulted ceiling disappearing into shadow, and feel nothing. Or perhaps a flicker of desperate hope, a whispered, incoherent plea for relief, for escape, for simple survival. But the silence offers no answer. The saints in the windows remain impassive. The space feels vast, empty, indifferent. Religion, for the castle's masters, might be a source of comfort, a justification for their status, a framework for their lives. For you, it's another hierarchy you cannot ascend, another language you don't fully understand, another performance you observe from the margins. The chapel, with its beauty and its silence, might offer a brief visual and auditory respite from the castle's usual chaos, but it provides no spiritual comfort. It only underscores the feeling of being utterly alone, abandoned not just by men, but perhaps even by the God they claim to worship. While much of your existence is defined by frantic movement, scurrying on errands, performing laborious tasks, dodging hazards, there are also periods of enforced stillness. These are not moments of rest, but times when your primary function is simply to be seen, to stand as a living ornament, a testament to your master's collection of oddities. These periods, often occurring during feasts, audiences, or formal gatherings, bring their own unique form of torment, the agony of immobility combined with the discomfort of sustained, unwanted scrutiny. Imagine standing for hours near the Lord's high table during a prolonged banquet, or perhaps positioned like a statue near the entrance of the solar while the lady receives visitors. You might be given a prop, a ridiculously oversized, non-functional lute, a banner too heavy to hold properly, or simply nothing at all, and instructed to remain perfectly still. "Don't fidget, little one," the steward might hiss, his voice low but menacing. The physical challenge is immediate. Standing motionless for extended periods is surprisingly taxing. Your legs begin to ache, then tremble. Your back protests. Muscles you didn't know you had scream for relief. The ill-fitting costume chafes and binds. An itch develops on your nose, impossible to scratch. A fly buzzes persistently around your head. You fight the urge to shift your weight, to stretch, to swat the insect away, knowing that any movement could draw sharp rebuke or punishment. The effort of maintaining stillness becomes a draining internal battle. But the physical discomfort is often secondary to the psychological strain of being perpetually observed. From your fixed position, you become a focal point, albeit a minor one, in the room's tableau. Guests' eyes drift towards you. You feel their gazes, curious, amused, pitying, contemptuous, or simply indifferent, like examining an unusual piece of furniture. They might whisper comments to each other, sometimes accompanied by pointing or laughter. You can't hear the words, usually, but the intent is clear. You are being discussed, assessed, judged, not as a person, but as a spectacle. You learn to perfect a mask of blank neutrality. Looking down at the floor is often safest, avoiding direct eye contact, which could be misinterpreted as insolence. Yet, even staring at the flagstones, you feel the weight of their attention. You become hyper-aware of your own body, your breathing, the way your ridiculous tunic hangs. Are you standing straight enough? Is the bell on your cap jingling too much? Every tiny, involuntary movement feels magnified, exposed. This enforced stillness provides ample, unwelcome opportunity for your mind to race. You replay earlier humiliations. You anticipate future tasks and dangers. You feel the gnawing hunger, the persistent chill, the dull ache of chronic pain. There is no distraction, no task to occupy your hands or thoughts, only the relentless present moment, filled with physical discomfort and the oppressive awareness of being watched. Sometimes, a noble might directly interact with you during these periods. Perhaps a child bored with adult conversation points and asks loudly, "What is that, Mama?" Or a drunken guest might lean down, peering closely at your face, breathing fumes of wine, making a crude remark about your features. These interactions are terrifying. You must respond, if required, with utmost deference, your voice barely a whisper, while enduring the close proximity and unwanted attention, praying for it to end quickly. These moments strip away the illusion that your tasks, however menial, define your worth. Here, your value lies solely in your physical presence, your difference, your ability to serve as a passive object of curiosity or amusement. You are part of the scenery, a living decoration meant to enhance the Lord's status. The stillness is not peace, it is a cage of visibility, where every second stretches into an eternity of aching muscles and silent endurance under the relentless, dehumanizing gaze of others. Amidst the relentless focus on your own survival, your eyes inevitably catch glimpses of other lives unfolding within the castle walls. These are not interactions, rarely even acknowledgements, but brief observations that offer fragmented perspectives on the complex social machine you inhabit. Perhaps most poignant are the glimpses of the castle's children, both noble and common, whose paths occasionally intersect with yours, highlighting different kinds of vulnerability and privilege. Imagine seeing the Lord's children, perhaps a young boy being trained by the master-at-arms in the bailey, or a girl learning embroidery with her governess in a sunlit window embrasure. They are dressed in miniature versions of adult finery, their movements already imbued with an awareness of their status. They might notice you, a flash of curiosity in their eyes, perhaps pointing or asking a question you cannot hear. Their world is one of structured learning, expected futures, and inherent importance. They are protected, cherished, in their own way, their needs attended to. Their casual disregard for you, learned from their elders, is a stark reflection of your own perceived insignificance. Yet, you might also see a flicker of something else. A child's tantrum quickly suppressed, a moment of frustration under the weight of expectation, hinting that even privilege has its burdens, though incomparably lighter than your own. Then there are the children of the servants or guards. You might see them playing rough-and-tumble games in dusty corners of the bailey, their clothes patched, their faces smudged with dirt. They live in the same harsh environment as you, yet their experience is different. They belong in a way you do not. They have families, however poor. They might mimic the cruelty they see from adults, perhaps shouting insults or throwing stones at you, seeing you as an easy target, an other even within their own lowly world. Or, rarely, you might witness a moment of unexpected kindness, a child offering you a dropped berry, not out of pity, but simple, uncalculated sharing. before being quickly shooed away by a wary parent. These encounters are fleeting, leaving behind a residue of complex feelings. The noble children highlight the unbridgeable chasm of status. The common children underscore your profound isolation, your lack of belonging even among the lower orders. Both serve as reminders of the life you don't have, a childhood, a family, a place within the accepted structure of the world. Beyond the children, you observe other fragments. You see the weary face of the laundress, her hands permanently raw. You notice the nervous deference of a visiting merchant trying to curry favor with the steward. You glimpse the forbidden affection between a stable boy and a kitchen maid, snatched in hurried whispers in a dark corridor. You see the stoic endurance of the old soldier with a missing leg, now relegated to gate duty. Each is a small story, a life constrained by the castle's rigid hierarchy, yet distinct from your own. These observations don't lessen your own suffering, nor do they forge connections. You are merely a spectator on the periphery, gathering impressions like found pebbles. But they add depth to your understanding of the castle's ecosystem. It's not just a monolithic structure of lords and servants, but a complex web of individual lives, struggles, hopes, and fears, all playing out against the backdrop of stone walls and ingrained inequality. Your own unique hardship is contextualized, not diminished, by the awareness of the myriad other dramas unfolding around you. Dramas in which you are rarely more than a passing shadow, or an inconvenient piece of scenery. Your world is almost entirely circumscribed by the castle walls, the towering stone, the heavy gates. They are the boundaries of your known universe, the limits of your cage. But on rare, unpredictable occasions, a task might require you to step just beyond this perimeter. Not into freedom, never that, but into the immediate vicinity outside the main gate, perhaps to fetch water from a cleaner stream, gather specific herbs growing nearby, or deliver a message to someone in the small cluster of cottages huddled just beyond the moat. These brief excursions are not escapes, but they offer a jarring, disorienting, and often dangerous glimpse of the world you are otherwise denied. Imagine the moment the heavy portcullis groans upwards, or the massive wooden gate swings open, revealing not the familiar, enclosed chaos of the bailey, but open sky, unfiltered sunlight, or rain, and the different smells of earth, vegetation, and perhaps the nearby village. The sensory shift is abrupt. The air feels different, lighter, carrying scents the castle walls usually block. The sounds change. The wind in the trees, if any stand nearby. The distant bleating of sheep, the chatter of villagers, replacing the constant oppressive clang and clatter of the castle interior. This brief exposure feels overwhelming. The sheer openness can be dizzying after the confined spaces you inhabit. The light might seem blindingly bright, forcing you to squint. You feel intensely visible, exposed not just to the elements but to the eyes of those outside the castle's immediate hierarchy. Villagers, farmers, travelling merchants, they might stop and stare, their curiosity perhaps less malicious than that of the castle inhabitants, but no less intense. You are an anomaly, the Lord's little servant seen outside your usual context, your garish tunic marking you instantly. The task itself is performed under immense pressure. You are likely accompanied by a guard, or at least watched closely from the gatehouse. There's no lingering, no exploring. You hurry to the stream, your small bucket heavy on the return journey. You scan the ground for the required herbs, your fingers fumbling in haste. You deliver the message to a wary cottager, enduring their stares, and retreat quickly. Every moment outside the walls feels precarious, fraught with the risk of attracting unwanted attention, getting lost even a few yards from the gate, or failing the task and facing punishment back inside. Yet, despite the anxiety, these moments offer fleeting, powerful impressions. You might see wildflowers growing by the path, colours other than those forced upon you. You might feel the mud squelch under your worn shoes, a connection to the earth absent on the stone floors. You might catch a glimpse of family life in a cottage doorway, a scene of simple domesticity so alien it feels like observing another species. These tiny details imprint themselves on your mind, stark contrasts to the harsh realities within the walls. The return is always jarring. Passing back under the gate, the familiar smells and sounds of the castle closing in again feels like entering a tomb. The brief sensation of open air vanishes, replaced by the heavy, stagnant atmosphere you know so well. The glimpse of the outside world doesn't offer hope. Instead, it often sharpens the pain of your confinement. It reminds you that another world exists, a world you can see and smell for a fleeting moment, but to which you do not belong, a world from which the castle walls effectively, permanently exclude you. These rare excursions are not moments of relief, but complex experiences, blending sensory novelty with heightened anxiety and a reinforced sense of imprisonment. They punctuate the monotony, but the punctuation is often sharp, painful, reminding you that even the air just beyond the gate tastes different, and it's a taste you are only permitted in the briefest, most controlled, and most vulnerable of circumstances. How do you measure time in a place where each day bleeds into the next, marked only by the relentless cycle of chores, discomfort, and fear? The grand events that punctuate the lives of the nobility, feasts, tournaments, births, deaths, changing seasons signaled by new fashions, are mere ripples on the surface of your unchanging reality. For you, time is not a linear progression, but a thick, stagnant pool in which you are submerged. Days are not distinguished by unique occurrences, but by the familiar rotation of tasks. Was it yesterday, or the day before, that you scrubbed the greasy cauldron? Did the incident with the drunken squire happen last week or last month? The constant physical exertion and mental strain blur the edges of memory. Events, particularly traumatic ones, might stand out initially, but the sheer volume of daily hardship tends to grind them down, smoothing them into the general landscape of suffering. There is little novelty, little to differentiate one sunrise, one meager meal, one exhausting collapse onto the straw pallet from the next. The seasons change, yes, marked by the biting cold or the oppressive heat penetrating the stone walls, as felt acutely in Block 3. But these changes bring only variations in misery, not milestones. Winter means numb fingers and shivering nights. Summer means suffocating heat and swarming flies. There's no joyful anticipation of spring, no cozy settling in for winter. Each season simply presents its own specific set of challenges to endure. Memory becomes a treacherous landscape. Recalling past kindnesses, if any existed before your castle life, is too painful a contrast. Remembering specific humiliations can reignite the fear and shame. It becomes a survival mechanism, perhaps, to let the days blend, to dull the sharp edges of specific memories, to focus only on the immediate present, the next task, the next potential threat, the next moment of necessary vigilance. The past offers no comfort, and the future promises only more of the same. You might try to track time in small ways, notching a hidden mark on a stone for each day perhaps, until the marks become a meaningless jumble or are discovered and erased. Observing the slow creep of moss on a damp wall, noting the changing position of the sun as glimpsed through a high window. But these efforts feel futile. Time stretches ahead, an undifferentiated expanse of servitude. There is no sense of progress, no goal to work towards, no hope of release. You are not spending time, you are enduring it. Years could pass in this manner. Your body might age, aches deepening, energy waning, but your circumstances remain static. The faces of the guards might change, new nobles might arrive, children might grow, but your role, your costume, your treatment remain constant. You become a fixture, a part of the castle's grim furniture, your own sense of self slowly eroding under the relentless, monotonous pressure of unchanging days. Time for others might bring change, growth, opportunity. For you, it brings only the slow grinding down of spirit, the gradual acceptance of a perpetual, inescapable present. So here you are, trapped in this relentless cycle, defined by hardship, clothed in mockery, sustained by crumbs. The walls are high, the indifference crushing, the future a bleak, unchanging expanse. Survival, day by day, seems less an achievement and more a slow, grinding defeat. The original premise hangs heavy in the air. You'd never survive. And perhaps, in the conventional sense, measured by comfort, dignity, or hope, that premise holds true. The physical body endures, yes, but what of the spirit? What remains within, behind the downcast eyes and the carefully maintained mask of neutrality? This is the final, most intimate battleground, the landscape of your own mind. While the castle controls your movements, your tasks, your appearance, can it truly conquer your thoughts? Perhaps not entirely. Even in the deepest darkness, tiny sparks might persist, fragile and easily extinguished, yet stubbornly present. These are not grand dreams of escape or rebellion. Such thoughts are too dangerous, too likely to lead to despair when inevitably crushed. No, these are smaller, more fundamental assertions of self. Imagine, during a moment of enforced stillness, not focusing on the aching muscles or the unwanted gazes, but instead retreating deep inside. You might meticulously reconstruct a memory from before. Not a specific event, perhaps too painful, but a sensation. The feeling of warm sun on bare skin, unfiltered by arrow slits. The taste of a ripe berry, untainted by scarcity. The sound of genuine laughter, unburdened by cruelty. You hold on to this sensory fragment, turning it over in your mind like the smooth, hidden stone from Block 1. A private treasure no one can confiscate. It's a reminder that another reality, however distant, once existed, or could exist. Or perhaps the spark takes the form of observation, detached and analytical. You watch the intricate dance of power among the nobles, the petty squabbles among the servants, the predictable reactions of the guards. You become a silent chronicler of the castle's follies and cruelties. You notice the subtle crack in the steward's composure, the flicker of fear in the eyes of a boastful knight, the hidden kindness of the old laundress. This act of seeing, of understanding the mechanics of the machine that oppresses you, provides a sliver of intellectual distance, a way to mentally rise above the immediate suffering, even if only for a moment. You cannot change the game, but you can, in the privacy of your mind, understand its rules and its players. Maybe defiance manifests in minuscule, secret acts, deliberately leaving a single weed unpulled in the herb garden, silently correcting the grammar of a shouted order within your own thoughts, finding a hidden spot to watch ants industriously building a colony, appreciating their purposefulness in contrast to the castle's often pointless cruelty. These acts change nothing externally, but they are tiny assertions of agency, whispers of an internal life that remains untouched by the outward degradation. They are proof that the costume, the chores, the insults do not define the entirety of your being. Humour, too, might find a crack to seep through, albeit dark and silent. The sheer absurdity of your brightly coloured tunic while cleaning a garderobe chute. The pomposity of a visiting lord tripped up by his own robes. The ridiculousness of a noblewoman screeching at her lapdog. Observing these moments and allowing a silent, internal flicker of amusement is a powerful form of resistance. It acknowledges the horror, but refuses to be entirely consumed by it. Laughter, even unheard, is a refusal to fully surrender to misery. These internal sparks, memory, observation, secret defiance, dark humour, are not enough to change your circumstances. They don't lessen the hunger, the cold, or the fear. They don't offer a path to escape. But they are evidence of resilience. They are the faint embers glowing in the ashes of a spirit subjected to relentless attempts at extinguishment. They are the assertion that even when stripped of dignity, comfort, and freedom, the human or dwarven mind retains a space, however small, that cannot be entirely conquered. Survival here may not look like thriving. It may not even look like living to an outside observer. It might simply be the stubborn refusal of those internal sparks to die out completely, a quiet insistence on remaining sentient, aware, and fundamentally present within the crushing weight of the medieval castle.